Hey everyone, welcome back. Quick one for you today from my Cubase family. I had a question that came up with one of my friends who wanted to get more power out of his computer. Obviously, using all the latest VSTs, they're getting hungrier now with this sort of AI and wavetable, additive, granular stuff going on. And so, how he wanted to know how to get more out of his computer because he wanted to use a lot of the VSTs, which are pretty sick nowadays. But they're quite hungry. Serum 2, I'm looking at you. Although Serum 2 is amazing, we know it's quite a resource heavy program. So, and of course, if you want to use multiple, then you are going to, even on the top tier computer, you're going to be hitting bottlenecks. And a lot of people like to use multiple versions of it, of course, and rightly so. So, let's look at how we can first navigate that. So, 5 cool tips for beginners and advanced. Let's go. Let's have a look. So the first one was going to be what I told him was freezing tracks, which he didn't really know much about. So this is really, really cool. So freezing tracks is been in there for eons in Cubase. Really cool feature. Basically, it means that you can offload your processing power. Whatever's getting processed to your CPU, you can offload that processing power and temporarily freeze it. And of course, it's not set in stone. It can be undone and reversed as well. So there's 2 ways of doing it. So you can freeze your channels. So for instance, I have this bass here. There's a lot of render stuff in this project, but for the example, it'll be easy to show you this way. So this is a VST that I have. Just a baseline running. It's quite processor heavy. It's UVI Workstation, but using one of their, or should I say, using one of the expansions that go within that, third-party ones. So once you start messing around with the effects within that and other stuff, then it does get a bit heavy. So what I found was to show him was this. So first of all, you have the option here. You see on the left-hand side, you get the option to freeze channels, and you can freeze multiple channels, multiple instances, and you can choose, the inserts as well, and then you can choose to whether to unload, which is literally just take it out of the project temporarily when it's frozen, and you can reload it again, so you can undo it again. Also, which is really cool here, is you get to choose the tail as well. So the tail will be, for instance, if it's a vocal track and there's a reverb tail going off and there's a delay tail going off. So obviously you'll choose the milliseconds, otherwise you're going to get it cut off and then there's no tail. So if something with a delayed vocal, then it's going to be really messy almost. So this keeps it tidy to keep your tail intact and your reverb intact and your delay intact. So really simple there. You just literally go there. I can say include all the inserts for the tracks, so the plugins as well. I can press OK, and that's it. And then you can see it freezing. We're going to do this real time, so you can see what I'm showing you here. So it's only a few seconds, a couple of bars. Obviously, you can do this over a whole track, but be prepared that it will take a while. Now, my computer is not the newest, and so I do find myself doing this quite a bit. I think it's 9 years old now, 8 or 9 years old, and I'm sure a lot of us, have older computers because you're here on this channel watching music and watching tips. We don't have the latest. A lot of people, because every year's a new one. And so this is good to be able to actually get the most out of what we have. And so now you can see there it's frozen. And you can see it's sort of, let me just extend that a bit. And you can see now it's sort of faded out here. So it's grayed out, should I say. It's grayed out. And that means that it's still active. And of course, then when I click into the key editor, I can't do anything because it's frozen in time. And that means that then obviously, look, see here, if I go to, for instance, another key editor, you can see it's there and I can change the MIDI around. But when it's frozen in time. So you're probably better off setting your edits and stuff. And then that's what I do. I get through a whole track, get it how I want it, all the edits on the mix down phase, and then I'll freeze everything. And that's it, it's ready to go. And that means then I offload that whole instrument or several of those instruments, or it could be several serums, pigments, current, all these kind of heavy VSTs, and then I can freeze them so that all that processing power is now back to my CPU, and it gives me that chance of not bottlenecking, which he was struggling with. So I thought it's a really cool thing to show. It's been in there for a while. Again, this is just 5 tips for beginners and advanced users, but it's something I do use a lot. And just say, for instance, I wanted to go back into one of the 2 of these notes and change the notes because they can still play. They can still play as normal in concert with everything else. So nothing changes as far as the sound's concerned, but then if I want to do a little quick edit, I just unfreeze. And I can choose to keep the the frozen files, or delete the freeze files. Sometimes you might want to say, you know what, I want a clean slate and start again, and then I'll say, okay, I'm going to delete the freeze files, and then I'm back in, and now I can re-edit within the key editor in Cubase. But the cool thing is also is when you freeze something and you save your project, it then goes to a frozen folder. So PC and Mac users, I think PC is your project folder, and then Mac users, I think it's your documents folder that these freeze files go to. And also here, if you look in the instruments as well, if you want to specifically target the instruments that you have here, see these are all the instruments that I have in the track, and you want to just, rather than freezing channels, specific channels and specific freezing channels and specific things in the project list here, you can actually come here directly to the instruments, which is here. If you go to Studio and then you go to VS Instruments, I have it as N as a shortcut. I don't know why, but I've had that for 10 years at least. Anyway, so you can see here all my heavy instruments. So there's reactors in here and stuff like that, contact, and then it's same theory here. Next to it, you'll see a freeze instrument dialog. I click on it, and it's the same theory again. So really cool tip this for if you run into bottlenecks and you want to use a lot of heavy new VSTs and plugins and stuff like that in your project, and it's mixed down phase, and you just want to make sure that everything's just in check. This is a cool way to look at that. So there you go. Yeah, freezing tracks, freezing instruments. Second one, number 2, which leads nicely onto this, conserving and stuff like that, and being economic and have good housekeeping in your projects, is render in place. Okay, so here we are, render in place. So this is a sample, a beat that I've resampled many times, and this is how I did it. I literally just press R, and there you see, render in place. So this can be set to a key command. Also, like freezing as well, you can set many things to key commands. Let me just undo that and show you what I did. And what you're doing with render in place is, I always look at the R as in render as resample as well. So it's resampling, it's re-rendering. And so this is also a way of saving resources, but also keeping things really tidy. And so it's good for many things. Sound design, multiple hits, all that kind of stuff. Resampling with effects, and then actually having your custom signature beats and stuff like that. Really cool. So if I go to edit here, you can see render in place. I'm going to go to render settings. And so this is what the render settings box looks like. So there's 3 different types of renders. So you can have separate events, whereas it will actually render it into separate events. So you have separate events, and then you have block events, which will make them into a block. So one event, block events and one event are quite related, quite similar. So basically it means, for instance, if I have this, if I chop this up here, and let's do this quickly now while we're at it. So I'm going to chop it. I'm going to chop it by bar, no, by beat. So let's just chop it by beat. Let's turn my quantize snap on. So I'm going to chop it all like this. So I have it in 4 sections. I'm going to color them like this. Let's make this one green. Keep yellow there. Pink, something like that. Okay, so I want to render all these as one block, and this is what this is really cool for. So again, edit, render, and of course there's shortcut commands for this. Mine's R, but obviously your render settings may change a lot, so you have to keep maybe going back in here and tweaking and setting things. So quickly, let's just show you what this means. So I can then do separate events. Let's do this now. I want to do it dry, because you can do it dry with nothing on it, but this is one I always do a lot, the complete signal path. So I'm not really mastering until the end, so there's nothing really on the master usually in my productions. I usually mix and then master. So a lot of all the processing is on the actual mix channels, and so the complete signal path is everything. Inserts, EQ, everything, and of course then you can also have the complete signal path and the master effects as well. So this will be your master bus that also gets processed in this render, which is really awesome. And again, the tail, which is happily there for me, and I love that. You get tidy renders. So obviously you can have it off or seconds, bars and beats, so the tails literally will be beneficial. And of course if there's reverb and stuff, you can do that and allocate for that. And then of course we have what kind of bit depth you want. You know, if you're doing CDs, you're going to be 16-bit. If you want all the maximum headroom, you can go 32-bit float. And then of course, up until recent versions of Cubase, 64-bit floating point headroom. So a lot going on. Really customizable. And then, of course, the naming scheme, which is amazing. So you can actually then set a custom name and have maybe consecutive, maybe vocal chops, and then just create a name and call it Vox Chops, something like that. Even though it's a beat, I'm just going to, so for examples, and then I can choose what location it goes to, and then from there it will mute the original events, and then it will give me individual audio files renamed with the scheme, with the naming scheme, Vox Chops 1, 2, 8, 3, 4, 5 in that folder. So it's really handy for doing multiple chops, edits, sound design, processing, all that kind of stuff. And then you have your handily resampled signature sound samples in the folder ready to go. And of course, like we said before, then it offloads your processing power. Also, it means that, yes, it's set in stone and stuff, and you can undo it, but it's set in stone, but make sure that you know this is the sound that you kind of want. But it's good to sometimes have a beat and you know it's absolutely right, and you might want to put it in other projects or put it on hardware or move it around, render it as it is, or I'll save the project, and then you're good to go. So let's quickly do that. So we're on R. I'm going to go to here, render in place, render settings. And of course, you can keep rendering with the current settings, so you don't have to keep tweaking it. If you know how you work in it, like I have there, and where it's going to, what folder it's going to, you just, that's it. You just set it and forget it. But in here, let's just show how it works. Let's show the free versions. So separate events, render. And you can see there, it's going to a fresh audio channel. And it handily mutes the other one as well, so that's great. So you get actual stereo out prefix, so it tells you what was the path, and there it is. And because it's muted, I can also see, unlike freezing a track where you have to unfreeze it and stuff, I can just go back straight into it and see what was on it. So I've got a drum strip, reverb and a frequency EQ on there, and I can see what was on there as well. So I also have the original and the resampled version, so it's really, really handy that. So I'm going to undo it, and then we're going to show you the other one, which I think is for me is the one that I use quite a lot. So say I have these chops, all different edits, types, whatever's going on in there, maybe different processing on them, because you can use direct offline processing as well, which I'll show in a later video. I can then go to edit, and we can come back to here to render in place. And I'm going to go render settings, and I'm going to say give it me as a block event, complete signal path with the master effects, 32-point float, tail mode. I'm going to leave it on bars and beats, no tail size obviously, but it's on there. Vox chops, it's not a Vox, so let's put beats, sap. I know where it's going to, my beats folder. I'm going to mute source the original events, and then I'm going to render it. And now you'll see it will make this into one block, and that's really handy. So you can see here now. So it's also glued them together and made it one block, because this could be like a vocal phrase, many vocal takes that you then make into a coherent phrase. And then now I have a simple one solid timed processed Vox phrase that can just be used again and again and again. And of course, there it is, the processing. Really, really cool. So that's a really cool one, render in place. Wanted to show you that. Use it again all the time. That in conjunction with freeze, if you're ever hitting bottlenecks, this is a really cool setting to use. And also as well creatively, like say if you do multiple hits or sound design stuff on a track and you want to just literally render it all down, either as a custom key command as R, just press R and then it renders. And it's quite quick as well, which is good. So cool little tip there I thought I would share. Okay, so moving on. Retrospective record, which unbelievably a few years ago I did a lot of seminars on the road, and so many people didn't know that this was in there, and it's been in there for eons, MIDI times, you know, and it's a great feature. It's a killer feature. So what is it? Retrospective record means that Cubase is always listening. So Cubase is always listening to your riffs, whatever you play, ideas and stuff like that as MIDI, and you can then recall them. That's exactly what it is in a nutshell. So in your key editor, so for instance here, I'm going to stay on a bass channel. You can see here, if I right click here, you can actually turn on the radio button of retrospective record. It's there. And also you can look at it here in transport. So in transport here, MIDI retrospective record, and you'll see more options here. And so what that means is, because it's always listening, you can also just play riffs and stuff, and Cubase will pick it up, and then you can insert it linearly into your arrangement. But there's some little nice tricks in it. Okay, so I'm going to empty all buffers. So what that means is there's a clean MIDI buffer now. So whatever I could do from now, it comes in. But what's really cool about Cubase is if I go to, for instance, Studio, and I go to on-screen keyboard, which is Alt-K, and I think Control-K on the Mac. This is really cool because not everyone has this option, like to have a MIDI keyboard straight away. You want to do some quick ideas, and so now I can use, obviously, this as a QWERTY keyboard. So I can obviously then resize this keyboard here, zoom it around, and this gives me a QWERTY keyboard, literally on a normal QWERTY keyboard, be able to play MIDI notes. So if I go to this reactor channel here, and then I can actually go to the corner right and turn it into a keyboard. So I actually turn it into a keyboard here, and then, for instance, I want to get a quick riff down, and I don't have to wire the keyboard in and stuff like that. But what if I'm just noodling and just getting ideas like... And I might say, okay, I kind of like that, but maybe I'll, change the style, the legato, all that kind of stuff. Maybe I want it in MIDI so I can change the octaves and move things around. Really, really cool. So Cubase has that now. So that's great because now I can just maybe, for instance, I might want to move that across, take it out of the loop here, no pun intended. And then from this cursor here, I can go to the Studio tab, and then I can go to, from this cursor here, I can go to the Transport tab because that's where it lives in here. Obviously, it's indicator as well, but from here you can actually then have the options to select your track from linear recording or as a cycle recording, empty the buffer, or import from all MIDI inputs. So obviously the keyboard, the QWERTY keyboard, is giving me MIDI inputs as well. And funnily enough, my MIDI keyboard's not plugged in right now, and so this helps to actually have this keyboard in and then just use the QWERTY keyboard. But if you're on a laptop on a road and you just want to get quick ideas and noodling ideas down, this is a great tool to use. So I'm going to say insert from all MIDI inputs because that's what's fine, the very first one, and there you can see it. So there's all my instruments that I've been playing, notes that I've been playing. Now, of course, there's some sort of housekeeping that needs to be done here, and that's fine. I can delete some things around, work out what parts I want. Let's play it. Let's zoom in a little bit. Something like that. Let's zoom in a little bit. And so I might choose then, and so I might choose certain parts that I like, so I can just move it along. I can move it along and say, okay. So I like it coming from there. So I like it starting from there, and I can say, okay, I can either move it, I can choose bar or beat, take the quantize off, really freehand and just get it where I want it to be, where I want it to start, something like that. I can then maybe select all here, just press Q, quantize it all, as dictated by the grid and the bars, so the quantize. So I can actually then choose to quantize it on bar and beat as well. So you can actually, it's not just freehand, you can actually, you don't have to have a metronome running to do it. You can actually then just time it and quantize it. And then, for instance, I might say, okay, don't particularly want that section. I might want to have all this here, and then starting from these notes, and then just move it across. Job's a good one. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So that's a really cool one. That's tip number. Okay, so that's I can't say this. It's retrospective record in Cubase. It's been in there for a while. I'm sure a lot of people know it's in there, but again, it's still, people get surprised. You'd be surprised that people are still surprised that it's still in. It's in there, should I say? That's in Cubase. Retrospective record. Use it quite a lot as well. Okay, especially on the laptop. What tip are we up to now? We're up to, we had track freeze, we had render in place, we had retrospective record, 2 more. Okay, so this is a cool one. So if you didn't know about this, the transport controls are here in the transport section. So if you didn't know, the transport controls obviously reside in the transport section, but this is really cool. So I was used to an old behavior of how Cubase played from the spacebar or from play on the CC 1-1 or whatever, and so everyone has their own, I suppose, behaviors how they want it to behave. When you press spacebar, I like to always do this. It starts from the cursor position, and then when I stop it, it goes back to the beginning like this. So this is the behavior I like. So then each time I can just keep checking takes, checking drops, checking sections. And of course you can do key commands and have one for left and right, which I usually have left and right cursor to keep going back 1 and 2. But this is great for the spacebar behavior because sometimes you're constantly just checking things on the spacebar. But I like the fact there's a few options in here. So in the transport here, you actually have in the transport here, you actually get to have, you want it to go from cycle start. You might want to get it from the selection start. So whatever you select, it can go from there. Or you want it to be, you want it to start from the selection cycle start, so when it begins to cycle, and of course then my one return start on position. So for instance here I might say give it me start from the selection start, and the start mode, you see it there, start mode has been changed to that. So I can say okay, give me that there, I want it from here, and then I come back here again. And that's right, I might well just check something. I might want to just check something, then come back again. Really, really cool. So then from there, I can then maybe change my behavior again. And then from here, I can say, okay, I want it to go from cycle start now. So I've done that loop, I've checked out the intro. Now when I go from cycle start, I just go start from cycle start, and it's handily telling me there, start mode has been changed from cycle start. And then when I press play on the space bar on here, the keyboard, and again, really, really handy that. So it's good for maybe picking out drops, intros, bridges, choruses, and then just switching back. So yeah, really, really cool. Wanted to show you that one if you didn't know this one already. Transport options, and of course they reside in the transport drop down here, and then you can see here the start mode. It's actually called start mode, which is, I think, is really, really cool. Okay, so final tip, really quick one, really cool one, is A and B presets. Now, whether you've seen this or not, I don't really know, but this is a really cool one and a creative one. So obviously, each plugin in Cubase has this here, you may or may not see, switch between A and B settings. So this is really cool. So you're not having to load or copy, because obviously in Cubase you can copy, I think it's Control on the PC, and you can, or is it Alt, should I say? No, you got Alt. And of course then you can actually, let me delete that. And of course you can duplicate plugins and turn them off in A and B, that kind of way. It's just, I think it becomes massively inconvenient if you're in a rush and trying out different plugins, stuff like that, plugin preset settings, should I say. And you're not having to keep going into the presets of the library and then look for the presets and all that kind of stuff. So this is really, really cool. So for instance, I have this bass here. Push on it. Now, I might say, okay, but I want to crush it a bit more and just maybe push it a bit more and see what might work and might not work. But sometimes you do it and you might have to undo. And yes, we have mixer undo and stuff like that, but not in the channel, in the key editor window. So it's good to be able to actually have a plugin that you can switch between two different varieties of preset just to get the flavor of you want. So then I can go to B here. If I click that, it goes orange, so you know you're on the B setting. And now I can really tweak it. Really nasty, I like that. So then I can say, okay, it might be too much, your ears are getting fatigued. What did it originally sound like? How did I have it before? So you're not having to constantly, you know, load defaults in and load saved presets, which I always recommend doing anyway and rating them and stuff like that. But this means I can quickly then just unclick this to go to the A, and now there's the original settings. Okay, no, actually I do like the B one. Click to B. And then do it on the fly. Maybe just cycle that so that it's tidy, and put it on bar, and then I'm gonna go here. So really, really cool. I can just change the values now. So maybe this needs a bit more. So because I know that B was extreme, but I want it to be quite in that same sort of realm. B, A, really, really cool. So this can be anything, obviously. It can be any plugin you choose. There's millions out there, and of course Cubase has millions as well. So it's good for maybe stuff like reverb, I found, because reverb, you know, you get a play and is it too much or is it not? And then you just, with 2 settings there, you can say, okay, that's just enough. And then you can just save that. And obviously if you're happy, then you can just save it as a default. If you know you want to use it again, that's cool. And of course, always you can save it as a preset anyway. But I think it's a really cool thing to have, to be able to choose. And maybe, as a suggestion to the amazing people at Steinberg, if we could have maybe an A, B, C, and a D. So that'd be cool, because I know that I think some of the plugins now have their own ecosystem, and so they have like multiple, you know, slots and stuff like that now. I've noticed in the last couple of years coming in. So maybe if you had an A, B, C, and a D, then we could have 4 presets to choose and flip between. Just an idea. Okay, so there you go, 5 tips. Hope you found something useful as an experienced user, or as a beginner, or as an in the middle, intermediate user. Something there for everyone. And I will see you next week with more stuff. And Seat Track users, I've not forgotten you. I've had loads of messages about the Seat Track stuff, so there's going to be some Seat Track stuff, as well as many of the other hardware samplers that I have in drum machines. We're going to be showing some beat making on that. Drum bass, hip hop, broken beat, grime type stuff, drill stuff, garage, you know, all that kind of stuff, because I make everything. I make every kind of music. So obviously drum and bass I'm known for, but on the beat machines, I also like to experiment with different tempos. And so I found a lot of the drum machines, it works really well. And then of course then I go into Cubase and then I do it that way. So not forgot you, Seat Track users, coming soon with the new firmware update as well. Some cool stuff in there. So I'll be showing you that real soon. Hold tight. And again, thanks for the likes, shares, comments, subscribes. Please feel free to comment if you want to see a particular video, or you want to see more of this type of stuff, or whatever. Or just say hi. Just say, hey, where you're from, and let me know. Some really cool things coming up. And another competition as well, probably towards the end of the year. So until next week, thanks again. Peace.